Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Gurudev. On the instructions of Gurudev and by his mercy, we continue our reading of Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi Leela, chapter 4, by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, in the translation from Bengali, and with the commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We've often described this book as a spiritual biography, and I realized this morning, thinking that that's a kind of a strange thing to say, because as we know, the soul is eternal. The soul doesn't change. The soul was, always, and shall always be. So it seems senseless to speak of a biography of the soul. It's always the same. So maybe we can think and reflect on the life of our dear Caitanya Mahaprabhu as the biography of a man becoming familiar with his soul. He is born an avatar of Krishna. There's evidence from early in his life that he understands that he's an avatar of Krishna. And yet he leads a life of evolution and change. He studies, he plays, he has a variety of leelas with family and friends. He marries. He takes sannyas. He travels. And all along his life, his relation to his soul evolves. And the reality of him being Krishna becomes heavier and heavier and more important. Early in his life, he presents himself as a very loyal devotee of Krishna. And in that way, he shows how to be a loyal devotee of Krishna. It's his aim to teach by doing. Teach devotion by doing devotion. And so he's a very, very humble and very loyal devotee of Krishna, while even strangely enough at the same time being Krishna himself. This is what's very, very strange and wonderful about his life. And then after he takes sannyas in midlife, around the age of 24, his symptoms of devotional ecstasy grow stronger and stronger. From dancing wildly to laughing to crying to his body behaving strangely, it becomes more and more clear that he is Krishna, and he all the while struggles to find the appropriate relation to his own soul. So it's really quite a beautiful story of a man in a material body, a soul in a material body, a jiva, who realizes he is Krishna and grows to fully embody that. To act like it, to behave like it, and then along the way to preach it, to show it, and then actually to show bodily symptoms of it that he doesn't even control. So I won't talk any more about a spiritual biography, but I think we'll continue to talk about the biography of a man in a very special situation who brings us very special gifts. A reminder, Gurudev has instructed us to read chapter 4, which is the confidential reasons for the appearance of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the spiritual reasons for him appearing as an avatar of Krishna, And this follows, as I've said before, the chapter 3, which was the external or material reasons for appearing as Caitanya Mahaprabhu, as Krishna, as an avatar of Krishna. Last time we read several verses, 35 to 41. Here are a few reminders of what we discovered. For in verse 35, you remember it was all about language. I said it was kind of a grammar lesson by Krishna Das, and a bit strange like that, but it was all about the way that grammar and language contains the power to make us do things. The context was that in one verse, the verse 34 before this 35, this verse 35 said, once you realize this is Krishna, you should act like a devotee. So there was a long meditation by Krishna Das Kaviraj and also by Mahaprabhu, by Prabhupada, who was very interested in this question, about how language brings us to behave in certain ways. And how language, which is a material substance, it's made of sounds, it's written on paper and with ink, or maybe printed on paper with ink, or it appears as electrons on our material screens. It's a material medium, and yet it touches our souls. It touches our spiritual consciousness. So that verse was very nice because it gave us a way to meditate on the way that material experiences become spiritual experiences. And that is not just once in a while it happens. That's the life of a devotee. That's the life of a sadhaka, like us. We're constantly living in our material bodies. We're living in our material forms. We're living with our material thoughts, our intelligence, our memory, our psychology. And yet, we're constantly touched, especially in a family like this one, by experiences, small experiences and large experiences, which make us reach toward our soul, reach toward our spiritual consciousness. So any devotee, any jiva, any sadhaka is in material consciousness but has some spiritual consciousness. Sometimes more, sometimes less, according to where we are in our evolution. But our path, difficult as it can be, is a simple one. It's to translate our material experiences into spiritual consciousness. To be spiritually conscious of what we live and experience with our material, in our material lives. And the deeper we go in devotion, the deeper, and by that I mean the deeper we go in connecting with others, the souls of others, through our hearts, through our souls, through our feelings, the deeper we go in that, the stronger we make that, the more we become spiritualized, the more our consciousness becomes spiritual. To the point where we can imagine, and maybe we could call this our goal, we can imagine a state of consciousness in which everything we experience is experienced spiritually. So every person I meet, I see as a soul, but also every tree I climb and every other inanimate object I see only the spiritual qualities of it. This is what a completely realized soul would, how a completely realized soul would experience the world. So language, we learned in verse 45, can express a kind of morality. And that's what that verse 34 did. It said, if you see Krishna in this way, you should behave like a devotee. There's a kind of must, there's a morality there, you should do that. And in the beginning, we can understand this morality as a material rule. I tell you as your teacher, your material teacher, that you should do that. You should act like a devotee and think like a devotee. So it has a material form, this morality. But then as it obtains a spiritual form, as it comes naturally from your own soul, then this material morality disappears and it becomes simply a way of your soul expressing itself. And then somehow from the question of morality, Prabhupada took us over to the question of sexuality and the way that material sexual pleasure cannot bring us to eternal happiness, eternal bliss, because, to put it briefly, it comes to an end. It's finite. And indeed, I think I commented that contained in erotic pleasure in the material plane is always the awareness, the consciousness that this pleasure will come to an end. And in fact, some would say that we even carry on with our sensual pleasures because we're afraid of their end. So we don't want that material pleasure ever to end, so we keep trying to repeat and repeat and repeat, instead of seeking to find a higher order of pleasure in our spiritual bliss. Quickly, verses 36 and 37 were about how Caitanya came to spread Prema Bhakti, and that he did that not from a religious point of view, not because it was religious law, not because it was dharma or religious custom. He came to spread Prema Bhakti because it was natural for him. And this was a very important distinction to be made, and it's made in that verse and the next verse too. That Caitanya came and gave his gift from his heart. It was natural for him. It was organic, if you like. He didn't do it because it was written somewhere. He didn't do it because it was commanded by Vishnu. He didn't do it for any exterior reason. He did it only for interior reasons, spiritual reasons, or as we call this chapter, confidential reasons. But, and then in the next verse, 38, Krishna Das Kaviraj says something very interesting. He says that, well, Caitanya came for this internal reason because from his heart he wanted to give Prema Bhakti. And if it happened to fulfill religious use, if it was useful from a religious point of view, well, that's good. But that, we should remember that that's secondary. That's second level. That's less important. He came for the generous, spiritually sentimental, spiritually organic reason, because it felt right to him. And if also it fulfills religious principles, that's very good. But let's remember that that's less important. That's secondary importance. So I'll even repeat the verse for you, just quickly. It said, verse 38, when the Lord desired to appear for another reason, the time for promulgating religion of the age also arose. So he appeared for the internal reason, but it also corresponded with the need for a change in dharma, in religious culture. Verse 39 continued that. Verse 40 talked about how this Prema Bhakti was there for everyone, and it mentions that he gave it even to the untouchables. And then we finished last time with verse 41, which Prabhupada then chose to comment extensively. So it's quite a long commentary about that. The verse talks about how about how Caitanya Mahaprabhu took the position of a devotee. That he appeared as a devotee and he displayed the habits of a good devotee. And he showed in this way, according to the verse and according to Prabhupada's commentary, he showed us how to continuously strengthen our love for God. So all through his life, Mahaprabhu continually grows in his love for God, continually grows in his surrender, continually opens the door of his heart to the divine. And let's not forget that what's really remarkable about his life is that he is Krishna, but he's acting like a devotee of Krishna. So through a manjari mood, as a devotee, or as a devotee of love for Krishna, he shows how to be the perfect devotee. Srila Prabhupada underlined the idea that this was a philosophy of surrender. Surrender is the moment of realization that we have nothing to gain from our intellectual, our willpower, that everything we have to gain is from opening our hearts. It's the moment of realizing that we know everything from the material point of view, but that we need to give ourselves away to love so that we can learn from the spiritual point of view. And this is, according to Srila Prabhupada, you might remember, natural for us. The most natural thing for us is to surrender to the divine. It seems like it's not natural, but in a way, our path, our spiritual evolution is one of removing the blockages to surrender, removing those things that stand in the way, removing those blockages from our spiritual experience so that we can completely be ourselves. Surrender means nothing more, nothing less than becoming ourselves. It doesn't mean becoming anybody else. Only becoming ourselves, but by becoming one in our soul. Further, there were some comments about the humility of Mahaprabhu and the greatness of his humility, which also comes out in the third verse, you remember, of Shikshastakam, which is all about humility. And then finally, there was a long comment by Srila Prabhupada about the Gaura Nagaris, which is a subset of devotees in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, who practice their devotion by imitating the practices of the gopis. They imitate being enjoyed by Krishna. They imitate playing the role of giving Krishna pleasure, as in the rasa dance, from outside. And you might remember Srila Prabhupada was critical of this. He said that Manjari Bhav can never be an imitation. It must be natural and come from the heart. It must be complete, and it must also involve surrender. That is what we learned last time. Now we move on with verse 42. Dashya Sakya Vatsalya Araye Shringara Chari Prema Chaturvida Bhakti I Adhara. So the first four words you know: Dashya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Shringara. These are the different kinds of moods of love. Dashya is servitude, Sakya is friendship, Vatsalya is parental mood, and Shringara is conjugal mood. So Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Ara, Ye, Shringara. Four kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the four kinds of mellows in love of God, namely servitude, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. Very interesting verse. Four kinds of devotees 4 kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the 4 kinds of mellows in love of God. Namely, servitude or service, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. Well, I say it's interesting because when we're describing these 4 kinds of mellows, these 4 kinds of moods, the verse says there are 4 different kinds of devotees. But at the same time, we're not describing devotees, we're describing the relationships they have with God. The verse is saying there are 4 different kinds of devotee relationships with God. And so our task is to ask, well, what is this service attitude, the service mood, dashya? What is the friendship mood? What is the parental love mood, the vatsalya? What is the conjugal love mood, the shingara? We talk a lot about them, these words, you've heard them before. But have we really gone deep into them? Do we really understand what they mean? What is happening? What's the difference between friendship and service? What's the difference between parental love and conjugal love and so on? And how do we tell the difference between them? By what we do. I can make someone some nice dinner in service, in friendship, as a parent or as a conjugal lover. I can do the same act in 4 different moods. So it's not the act itself that tells us the difference between them. What is it then? Well, it's the relation between the activity we do and the feelings we have. It's a question of where our heart is when we're carrying out the activities. What kind of relation we have to the beneficiary of the activity, how we feel when we're doing the activity, be it service, friendship, or so on. Who we are, spiritually speaking, when we carry out the activity. So here are suddenly many questions we can ask and meditate on when we're living our lives. When I'm cleaning my house, who am I doing it for? Where is it coming from, this motivation to clean my house? What's the connection to my heart when I'm doing it? What is the connection to God? These questions and others we can ask in order to determine what kind of mood it is, in order to understand these different moods, the dashya, sakya, and so on. Is it coming from the soul? Are there other interests for doing it? Is it going to the soul of another? Are there other interests that we want to give it to? All relations are soul to soul, but some relations are deeper than others. A relation that's 100% from my soul to your soul is the highest. Something like Shringara. One that's divided by some intellectual idea or some other reason for the activity, one that's partially soul to soul, partially from my soul, partially to your soul. This has a different kind of mood. So the mood that we have and everything we do is not determined by what we do, but by the relation of our heart to the heart of the other. Again, all relations are soul to soul. How deeply they are from my soul, how deeply they are to your soul, is the question that we need to be conscious of. Gurudev would say, check ourselves. Where is it coming from, what I'm doing? And where is it going? It's all a flow. It's all a kind of energy. But where is that energy coming from? Where is it going? Is it from my heart, my mind, my ego, my lust? Is it going to your heart, your mind, your ego, your lust? What is the balance? What is that flow of energy? And how can we refine it? Yes. Our consciousness should always be on the energy, on the flow. It's the energy that moves emotions. It's the energy that carries feeling like a river. And is that energy pure? Is it carrying nothing but my feeling? Or is there something more added to it? And in the same way, it's energy that attracts us to others. Is that energy pure? Or is it mixed with psychological effects? Is it mixed with intellectual curiosity? Is it mixed with secondary desires? The flow is always there, but the nature of the flow, this is what we need to be conscious of and attend to and improve and refine. What is a mood? What is a mood? This is another word we use every day in our practice, and yet we're very unclear, I think, about what it means. A mood is somehow the way that our soul communicates with our body. And when I say that, I mean at both material body and spiritual body. The way that the actions, the sensations, the experiences we have in our material body and spiritual body, how these are linked to the soul. So mood is also a kind of energy, also a kind of communication between heart and body, heart and consciousness, heart and action. Action in material body and action in spiritual body. So something similar can be said about flavor or taste, ras. It's also a connection between soul and experiences we have. Soul and experiences beyond the soul. A relation between soul and the spiritual experiences we have and the material experiences we have. Flavor, like mood, it doesn't have an object, does it? We don't have a flavor about something. We simply have a flavor on our tongue or in our spiritual taste. It's a kind of mode of being of our own hearts, our own sensation. And a devotee is the name of a soul that experiences flavors, different flavors. One who connects to flavors and goes through the world experiencing them. Flavor is also an energetic idea. It's a kind of energy that's flowing. And we'll come back to this in the next verse, I think, when Prabhupada comments at length about Radharani. So all these ways of speaking, when we talk about mood, when we talk about flavor, when we talk about emotion in general, these are all kinds of flows that the devotee is situated in. The devotee is a soul who acts in this flow. The devotee is someone who's energetically attracted, who's longing, who's wanting, who's desiring. And what we can adjust and what we can improve and make evolve is the way that we are in that energy, the way that we are desiring. Are we desiring spiritually? Are we desiring materially? Are we longing spiritually? Are we longing materially? We check ourselves, we purify, we clean, and we move forward. A devotee always says yes. I'd like to even define a devotee as a jiva who says yes. Yes and yes and yes. And what we need to be conscious of is what we're saying yes to. We want to be saying yes to the heart. We want to be saying yes to the heart of the other. We want to be saying yes to the heart of the divine. But there are so many other material things to say yes to that at times we become confused and we become a bit lost. So we say yes to service, we say yes to generosity, we say yes to spiritual growth, and we say yes to spiritual relation with others. Verse 43 now is going to speak more about the devotee experience. That's why I kind of dwelled on this idea of the devotee and what she feels. Verse 43. Nija nija bhava sabe shrestha kari mane, nija bhave kare Krishna sukha asvadane. And Prabhupada translates like this. Each kind of devotee feels that his sentiment is the most excellent. And thus, in that mood, he tastes great happiness with Lord Krishna. Each kind of devotee feels that his sentiment is the most excellent. And thus, in that mood, he tastes great happiness with Lord Krishna. It's a little bit complicated. Let's take it slowly. Each kind of devotee, sabbe, it is the word, so all devotees, it says, feels that his sentiment, nija nija bhav, is the best. And then it says, actually, that Krishna relishes his own happiness, Krishna sukha asvadana. He relishes his happiness according to the mood of the devotee. So, two things we learn here. First, every devotee thinks that his or her sentiment, his bhav, is the top. Fine. Second thing, Krishna's pleasure, Krishna's relishing, Krishna's happiness increases according to the mood of the devotee. Krishna's happiness does not increase by itself. Krishna's happiness increases when his devotee's happiness increases. And this is why in the Vraj Leela, in the Leela of Radha and Mohan, when the devotees can contribute through their Manjari Bhav to the loving sentiment of Radha, can contribute to the coming together of Radha and Mohan and the pleasure of Krishna, then Krishna's pleasure increases according to the way that the devotees served Radha. The relish of Krishna follows from the relish of his devotees. When the devotees are relishing, when they're enjoying, then he is relishing. So he both relishes as much. We could talk about the quantity of how much he relishes. He relishes as much as his devotees. So when they relish more, he will relish more. And also, beautifully, he relishes the same way that they relish. There are different forms of relish. There are different forms of relishing that we devotees have. And all the different ways that we relish spiritual pleasures, these are reflected in the pleasure of Krishna. So really quite wonderful idea, first, that Krishna is dependent upon his devotees, and even more important, that the devotee's pleasure, the devotee's happiness, is a direct cause of Krishna's happiness. And through the phenomenon, the appearance of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the path of transferring the relish of the devotee to the relish of Krishna is through Radharani. We serve Radha and take pleasure from that. Radha gives pleasure to Krishna, and Krishna relishes the pleasure from that. So it's in the form of Manjari Bhav that we relish, and it's in the form of Manjari Bhav that our relishing contributes to the relishing of Krishna. Our pleasure comes when we become aware that Radha has given pleasure to Krishna. Radha is the pleasure-giving energy, and we, in our Manjari mood, can serve her in her activities of giving pleasure, of transferring that pleasure-giving energy. So the place of the Manjari, which is our goal, if you like, the mood of Manjari is our goal. The place of Manjari is to make that love flow from Radha to Mohan, so that Mohan can relish. Make the prema flow, make the love of God reach God efficiently and completely. To open our hearts and minds to that flow, so that Radha will be empowered to make that flow happen, and therefore that Krishna can be the enjoyer. When prema flows, the love of God flows, it's through the presence of the Manjari, through the presence of Manjari Bhav. I lost my power, just a moment. Tak. So the flow happens when Radha is present. Oh, now it comes back, my power. And when we are present with Radha. So I'll switch my camera again. There.
Radhe Radhe, Uddhava.
Hello, my dear.
My dear, it's so beautiful to listen to you, and your power is never away. Your love and your power is always there. And it's so beautiful what you told us. That means that when our seva is to make them happy, Radha Mohan, to make them happy. This is only our seva, and we can, in our Manjari form, we can relish their pleasure, their love, their prema. And Krishna also can relish the Manjari's love. And this is multipliziert. How is the English word?
Multiplied.
It multiplied.
Yes.
So beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's unbelievable that this is a circle of prem which is increasing and increasing and increasing. So beautiful. Thank you so much, my dear.
You summarized it perfectly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how do we do this service then? There are lots of complicated ways of doing this service. There are books and books about how to do Manjari service. But the very first step, and the most simple step, is to enter into our Svarup. Because in our Svarup, in our spiritual identity, we are Manjaris. When we are most ourselves, when we are completely, coherent, when we're completely loyal to ourselves, true to ourselves, identical with ourselves, we are Manjaris. So the very first step in the path is simply to seek out our own soul through all the methods of bhakti practice, through chanting and singing and studying and dancing and associating, all the ways, in order to find our way to our own Svarup. That's the launching pad. That's the foundation of the house. I think Guru's used that metaphor many times. The foundation of our bhakti house is the Svarup. So if we want to know where to go, that's where we go first. And all of us are at that stage. Beyond that stage, more advanced devotees can then talk about meditating on different kinds of concrete services to Radha. But the very first starting point of the game is to become ourselves, which is really quite simple and quite difficult. But the goal is very simple. Sorry, go ahead, Teresa. Sorry.
My dear, Uddhava, do you think maybe they are also happy when we try to do our best and when we longing and crying for our Svarup and when we longing for them?
Yes. Thank you again for saying it better than I could. Yes, just the facts, my dears, that we sit here and we meditate on our Svarup, that we say, yes, by the mercy of Gurudev, by the mercy of association, I realize I have a Svarup, now I want to become it. The consciousness alone of having a Svarup is giving pleasure to Radha Mohan. Already we've taken the first step towards Manjari Bhav, and this pleases, just like you say, Rasheshwari. So only Svarup consciousness, the Gopi Bhav, the consciousness that we have a soul, it's already a pleasure-giving step in our Manjari journey. It's the first step, but it is a real step. So everyone here who understands me and you, Rasheshwari, when we say the word Svarup, they understand what that is. They've already taken one giant step toward their Svarup. Awareness of Svarup is a step toward Svarup and a step towards pleasure giving happiness to Radha Mohan.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Jai Gurudev. Jai Uddhava.
Jai Gurudev. Verse 44. Tatastaha yamane vichara yadikari sabarasa haite shringara adika maduri. So here already you hear a few familiar words, I hope, like shringara again, maduri. Prabhupada translates like this. But if we compare the sentiments in an impartial mood, we find that the conjugal sentiment is superior to all others in sweetness. I think this is probably not big news for us. We understand this. If we compare the sentiments in an impartial mood, we find that conjugal sentiment is superior to all the others in sweetness. So there are a couple of things we can talk about here. First of all, what does it mean to be impartial? I think that no mood is impartial. There's only a mood when we're passionate about it. There's only a mood when it's filled with desire or pushed in some sort of longing way. And then what does it mean to compare sweetness? Actually, I think if we look at the verse, it doesn't say in an impartial mood, it says ha yamane, it says with my mind. If we compare the sentiments in my mind, so intellectually, which is supposed to be without any emotion or without any soul or without any spirit, then among all the flavors, all the ras, that's what it says, tu sabha rasa haite, among all the ras, the Shringara, the conjugal one, is the sweetest, Madhuri. So if we just use our mind, which is a very boring thing to do, but if we must, we must. If we just use our mind, then we can tell intellectually that conjugal love is the greatest. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. Because now Prabhupada is going to comment and say, no one is higher or lower than anyone else in transcendental relationships with the Lord. For in the absolute realm, everything is equal. There's a very powerful statement by Prabhupada. No one is higher or lower than anyone else in transcendental relationships with the Lord. For in the absolute realm, everything is equal. Everyone who's in spiritual consciousness has the same level of intensity of relationship with the Lord. So the difference in mood, this is not a difference in relationship. Srila Prabhupada continues. But although these relationships are absolute, there are also transcendental differences between them. They're just not on the level. So let's continue. Thus, the transcendental relationship of conjugal love is considered the highest perfection. It's the sweetest. Now, why is it the sweetest? Prabhupada doesn't tell us this, so we have to think a little bit here. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so thirsty today. Why is Shringara sweetest? Why is conjugal love the highest? Why is it the sweetest? Well, we can think about our relationship to our husband or our wife or our partner and think that's very sweet, and therefore it's the sweetest. But if we want to think about the perfect conjugal partnership, of course, we think about Radha and Mohan. The model of conjugal love is Radha and Krishna. And why is that the model? We have another question. We answer a question and we have a new question. Why is it the model? Because the devotion between Radha and Mohan is the purest. The relation of service is the strongest. The relation of loving devotion is the most intense. And because we talked about surrender a moment ago, the surrender is total. The surrender of Radha to Mohan is total. And the surrender of Mohan to Radha is total. So it's the sweetest relation because the intimacy is greatest. They could not be more close together. Why is that? Because they're the same soul. Same soul in two bodies. They are so intimate that they're the same soul, but they live out their relationship from different aspects of that same soul. And their longing in those two aspects could not be greater. Their desiring, their attraction is the highest. The intensity of that magnetic attraction is the highest we can imagine. The intensity, that strength, the purity of wanting to be together. When I'm with my husband, I want to be with him 99%, except when there's a football match on the television. And then that's keeping me away. But with Radha and Mohan, no football matches will keep them away from each other. They're total magnetic. So that is why Shringara is the sweetest. Verse 45. More water. Yahutaramasa svada visheso lasamyapi ratirvasanaya svadvi bhaste kapi kashyachit. Srila Prabhupada translates like this. Increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another. But that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession of desire manifests itself in the form of conjugal love. This is also a way of answering the question that we just asked. Why is conjugal love so great? Increasing love is experienced in various tastes. So we love and love more and more and more. And the flavor that love has is different. It varies. It varies according to the level of love we give, the love we feel, and it varies according to the devotee mood. But that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession, so the greatest taste of the greatest love is conjugal. So love grows, tastes grow, and the highest love gives us the highest taste, which is conjugal love, Shringara. I forgot to say, and Srila Prabhupada says it, that this verse is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And it's kind of a typical verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. If you've read that book a little bit, it's quite a what should I say, catalog of all the emotional states we can possibly have. Many, many different names for many, many different emotional experiences, which can be very, very useful. It helps us to go very deep, but sometimes I feel I just want to feel and not know the names of all the feelings I'm having. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is like a handbook for emotions. It's like an atlas. You know, you have an atlas of the world, telling you all the different mountains and the valleys and the rivers and the cities and the regions. Well, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu gives you an atlas of the emotions. All the different mountain tops and the cliffs and the levels and the bottoms and the deep oceans of feeling and the dangerous cliffs of the feelings and the populated cities of feelings, the deserts of feelings, and on and on and on. We could go. And Rupa Goswami is you could say he's the chief Manjari. He's the first one who was instructed by Caitanya Mahaprabhu, personally instructed, face to face. And he went away and then wrote many, many books, and he instructed his disciples, like Sanatana Goswami. So this is why Gurudev often says that Sanatana Goswami gives us Sambandha, the instruction about what it means to have a loving relationship to the divine. Rupa Goswami gives us Abhideya, which means the path to follow, what needs to be done in order to arrive. Or if you want to talk like a Western scientist, you could say the method. That's what Rupa gives us. So it's very clear, and it's a clear roadmap. And then, in a way, Gurudev teaches us Raghunatha Goswami is the end experience, the prayojan, the goal of the practice. what it's like to be there. So Sanatana teaches us how to relate. Rupa gives us the atlas, the Abhideya, but Raghunath in Vilapa Kusmanjari and Manashiksa and other poems and prayers gives us the Parayojan, what it's like. And really not so much in descriptions. Sometimes in descriptions he describes what it's like to be in full bhakti practice, but mostly he shows with his life. His life is an example. And now that I think of it, Raghunath Das Goswami is very much like Mahaprabhu in that way. Mahaprabhu was a teacher, a brilliant teacher, but we remember him mostly because of his example. We remember him for his example, and that's the way we remember very much Raghunath Das Goswami as well. It's good to keep in mind these three dimensions of the bhakti path: the Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan, because these three experiences will be adventures, all three of them. The kind of relationship we have to the divine through the Sambandha, the path that we follow, which might be a crooked one and a long one, and as Narayan Maharaj says, a hidden one. And then the experience, that final experience of the highest bhajan that Raghunath represents. These are all three dimensions. We need to be merciful with each other. We need to ask for mercy of our associates and our guru. They're adventures, all three of them. It's not merely like water that's flowing through a pipe. The Sambandha is a pipe, and then the Abhideya is to follow the pipe, and then the water comes out the end. No. It's a very rich and changing path through a wild landscape. I like very much the idea of an atlas. We go up and down the mountains and around the trails and through the desert. We swim a little bit, we climb, we fall, and so on and so forth on our path. Every soul is unique. Every soul has a different experience of Sambandha and Abhideya and Prayojan. Verse 46. Now we turn back to the theme of Parakya Bhav. Ataeva madura rasa Caitanya nama svakya parakya bhave dvidvida samstana. Ateva madura rasa Caitanya nama svakya parakya bhave dvidvida samstana. Prabhupada translates, therefore I call it Madhura Ras. It has two further dimensions, namely wedded and unwedded love. So wait, what is he calling Madhura Ras here? This highest Ras, the conjugal, Shringara. The highest one is called Madhura Ras. He's going to call it, he says. So it has two further dimensions, namely wedded love, Svakya, and unwedded love, Parakya. So again, Svakya, we've talked about this before, but it's good to remind. Svakya means marital love, conjugal love. Now, conjugal not in the emotional sense, but in the social sense, where the devotees see themselves as spouse, belonging one to the other, part of an institution, even belonging one to the other in the eyes of God, as we do in Western marriage. And then Parakiyabhav, you remember, is secret love, forbidden love. Prabhupada uses the word paramour, but it sounds to me, to my ear, a little bit too Hollywood, so I kind of avoid that. It's forbidden love, secret love, where the devotee sees themselves both as loving each other and loving God in the same. That the love I feel for you is a full expression through my soul and through your soul of the love of God. So the romantic relationship I have to you is not different from a relation to the divine. And this is conjugal love. This is the highest love, which Krishnadas Kaviraj is calling Madhura Ras. We'll come back to this. There's more now in the next verse. Let's see. Verse 47. Parakiya bhave atirasera ulasa vrajavina ihara anyatra nahi vasa. Translation: there is a great increase of mellow and unwedded conjugal in the unwedded conjugal mood. Such love is found nowhere but in Vraj. There is a great increase of mellow. Rasera ulasa. Ulasa means greatness, increasing, and ras means, of course, mellow. There's an increase in joy, in feeling, in ecstasy, in delight, in Parakiyabhav, in this experience of ras. And that love is found only in Vraj. So when we think about Parakiyabhav, we have to think in two kinds of consciousness. The one is material consciousness, where it means breaking the rules. There are rules of marriage. There are social rules. There are moral rules. I guess there are legal rules too. These are the construction of the mind, the intelligence. These are material and subtle. They are put in place in order to make sure society works correctly, in order to structure power, in order to organize relationships. Actually, it's a little bit cruel to say, but they're also put in place in order to organize the way that material wealth flows in society from one family to the next. And traditionally in the West, it's the way that political power flows correctly. All this happens by way of the idea of marriage as a social order. Parakiyabhav in this sense is a breaking of these rules. A breaking which causes unhappiness, suffering, poverty. In French history, it causes people's heads to get chopped off, and so on and so forth. All these social constructions become weakened or destroyed or hurt through breaking the rules of marriage. So it's a form of control. And remember, we sometimes talk about one aspect of God as being the controller. In any case, all forms of control are external energy, material or subtle energy. They don't come from the soul. The soul is not controlling. So the rules that lie behind material Parakiyabhav do not come from the spiritual, and they're not meant for the spiritual. They're not addressed to the spiritual. But in Braj, as the verse says, in spiritual consciousness, in the spiritual world, Parakya Bhav is something completely different. In spiritual world, Parakya Bhav is letting go of the chains that hold us in order to have perfect divine love. It's about transcending the limitations, transcending the rules, going beyond, breaking free of the material bounds. In Braj, in the spiritual world, the devotee sees him or herself as a lover of Krishna. And it's wonderful. Every gopi in the Gopi Lila considers herself an exclusive lover of Krishna, even though she's left her family and husband behind and the milk cooking on the fire. She's transcended that material limitation through the realization that pure love of the divine is purely spiritual. They are lovers of Krishna not in a material way, but in a spiritual way. So a pure devotee feels the emotion of a gopi. A pure devotee transcends material limitations. A pure devotee is liberated by this idea that the love must be secret and that it's channeled only through the soul. So Parakya Bhav is love without bounds. And how do we get there? Again, it's like the answer to the question, how do we become Manjari? Step one, how do we enact, how do we carry out Parakya Bhav? By becoming our Swarup. By coming into our spiritual identity. By becoming who we really are. When we arrive at ourselves, at our spiritual identity, our soul identity, and even the closer we come to our soul identity, the more our experience of love transcends material connections and embraces spiritual love. So the more we become our spiritual identity, the more our material parakya limitations become spiritual parakya bhav. Swakya bhav means wedded love, which is very nice. Let's not criticize. But even wedded, the word wedded in English, it means to be married, have a wife, between wife and husband, or wife and husband and husband. But wedded also means connected. So I can take two pieces of rope and wed them, klak, and they're connected together, just like with the gunas. So to wed means to marry, yes, but to wed also means to tie. To tie with the gunas of material consciousness. So Parakya Bhav breaks the ties, Swakya Bhav connects the ties. Parakya Bhav gives us access to pure love, Swakya Bhav gives us the certainty of material relations.
Radhe Uddhava, sorry for interrupting.
Your interruptions are music.
Please, your last sentence to Parakya Bhav. Can you explain this more? I'm not sure if I don't understand because of my English, or can you please explain this more?
What was my last sentence? What about Parakya?
Last sentence about Parakya love.
There have been so many sentences, that's why I'm asking.
Yes.
I can try.
Before.
That Parakya Bhav is breaking the rules through the realization, or maybe at the same time as the realization that the highest, purest, greatest love is through the divine in us. So it's realizing that by completely becoming our soul, we enter in a love relationship with God, which has no rules, no limitations. So this episode of the Gopis is the one that defines Parikya for us. On the one hand, in material sense, they're breaking the rules because they're running off from their husband and children. In the material sense, they're breaking the rules. But by realizing their purely spiritual relation to Krishna, they adopt a spiritual Parikya, which is the actual key to a loving relation to God. So they transcend these material limitations in the realization that the truest love, the purest love, is a spiritual one, is a soul one, and it's with God, with Krishna. So their love with Krishna is not in conflict with their husbands and children and burning milk on the fire, because the purest, truest love is spiritual. That's the rule they were breaking, was a material one.
And what does that mean for us? You said something about us. The more we realize this, then what does that mean in our material life here?
The more we adopt our spiritual identity, the more we grow in our understanding, our consciousness of our Svarup, the more we will cast off material connections, material attachments, and material rules. So the one who's fully spiritually realized will have no more material lovers. Someone who's entirely realized is in love with everybody. Gurudev, he has 400,000 lovers, and count and increasing. There is no rule, there's no limitation, lover, not lover, wife, not wife. He has 100,000 wives and 100,000 husbands because he's in full spiritual realization. It's only in the material consciousness that these are necessary, these attachments. And this is not bad news. It doesn't mean, well, I have to let go of my girlfriend in order to become spiritual realized. It's not that you'll have less love for your girlfriend when you become realized. It's that you'll have more love for everyone. That's the secret. It's not that you want to divorce your husband. It's that you want to marry everyone. Everyone. You'll see every little cat and dog on the... No. every person you see on the street, you'll fall in love with. This is spiritual identity. That was a little bit crazier, but a little maybe clearer.
Radha Radha.
Shri Radha.
Radha, thank you. It's very, very crazy for my mind, but wonderful for my heart, I think now. For the good question from Raseshwari also, it make it the question to us. I'm a very low devotee. Material, what means it for material relationships, daughters, children, and this? And you give so nicely the answer for me, more and more. I'm a very beginner. It's totally transcendent. Also unconditional love is, I have nothing to leave. You say, I think now it's a little in my mind, go deeper in my heart now for your with your lectures more and more. This is so the mind make it very difficult.
Yes.
I'm very much in the mind in the last years now. More and more it get free. Go in the heart, like you say, like Gurudev say, years and years and years. And it is so helpfully for me here to be in your lecture also, for only feeling that it isn't had nothing to do for make it in my life wordly for wordly. I have to feel it in the heart, and then it go in my life.
There's exactly. There's nothing to do.
Yeah. Okay.
You have nothing to do. You have only to feel. Absolutely right.
Thank you.
There's no program. There's no book. There's no.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah. There's no user's manual. There's nothing to do.
And it made me to Radha Dasya more and more. With all second, I have to train this in the material life, I think. It's now I sit now in my chair and think, wow, I have get it. It's completely another thing. I can never ever get it. Only feeling, and sharing, and it did make me very happy and very, very
wonderful. So sweet, my dear.
Thank you so much, my dear Uddhava-ji.
So this only grows, and I think this is maybe some of you know devotees who have relationships with non-devotees. I have some experience with this myself. Maybe problems are created because the non-devotee thinks that the love of the devotee will become less, that there's a competition. But this is not the case. The love of the devotee becomes more and more and more, and there's only more room in the heart for love and for relationship. So there's not a limited amount of love that we need to give 10% to that person and 20% to that person and 5% to that. No. The process is that the heart grows until all of creation is part of your object of love. You're in love with everyone, everything. This is the divine sentiment. So there's no competition. Lovely. Anything more on this? It's such a very important subject. Okay, verse 48. Vraja vadhu ganara e bhava narivadi tara madhya shi radhaya bhavara avadi. This mood is unbounded in the damsels of Braj. But among them, it finds its perfection in Shri Radha. Here we come to the heart of the matter. Here we come to the core. Already among the gopis, like you and me, this love is unlimited, like we were just saying. There's no competition for the love. There's enough for the whole world. The mood is unbound in the damsels of Braj. So it's the gopis, I think. Yeah, gopis. The Vadhu Ganara, the gopi, the cowherd girls, the gopis. It's already limitless. But even among them, there's one gopi who finds perfection, and that's Shri Radha. So Radha's among the perfect bhav of the gopis, her bhav is the highest. Her mood, her feeling is the highest. And here too we can ask, what does that mean? Or how do we know that? Why does she become the best? Why does she become the favorite of Krishna? What does that mean? The highest, or the deepest, or the greatest? What is the highest feeling? Why does she have a higher feeling? Well, we first have to ask what a feeling is, I guess. And why is hers highest? And a feeling, of course, is everything in our practice. We talk almost always about feelings. A feeling isn't a thing, is it? It can be caused by a thing, but it's not a thing. It's not something we can take or give or share. It's not something we have or don't have. But it's something that's coming. It's something that's rising. It's something that's given, but we don't know who it's given from. And we don't know why it's given. It never comes with a reason, just like mercy. A feeling is really personal, isn't it? Extremely personal, and yet it comes from somewhere else. I don't know why it's mine, why I have this feeling. If it's a true feeling, I don't know where it comes from. If I know where it comes from, then it's not a feeling. Then it's an Amazon feeling. Then I can just go and get another one for another €5. I'm the only one who feels it, my feeling. And yet, I don't even know why I feel it and where it comes from. So it's kind of like it's me, it's a relation to myself, it's a connection to myself, it's a connection to my heart, to my soul. It's a movement too, a feeling. It's something coming from somewhere else towards me, coming from inside me and then up into my consciousness. It's something arriving. I feel like it's something arriving. It's something coming. It's not just there. It's not like a piece of candy, a piece of sweet I can take, or it's not a drop of nectar or something. It's something that's coming. It's carried by a river. It's carried by an energy, carried by a flow. So there's an energy there, and that's why I think of Radha. That's why I think Radha is highest. Because Radha is, of course, the internal energy of Krishna, the pleasure-giving energy, the Ladini Shakti. She's the energy that carries pleasure. So she, I feel, is the energy that carries feeling. Radha is the possibility of feeling. If Radha didn't exist, we would feel nothing. But because she's there, and because she has this energy that flows through us, through our hearts, through our souls, that's what lets feeling come. So Radha is the feeling of all feelings, the first feeling and the last feeling. She's where all feelings are going too. She's the energy of feeling. And since she's the energy of feeling, her experience of Krishna is higher than all the other gopis. And she's the one that Krishna selects to be the consort. She's the one that Krishna wants to take the mood of and the position of in order to experience this. So she's the perfect helper of Krishna in order for him to experience prem. That's why he loves her. That's why he wants to take her position. Because she's the energy that brings feelings. She's the feeling... she's the feeling of feeling. She's the feeling of the feeling, which is energy. I can't say it a different way than just that. I don't think it's explained anywhere why Radha is best of the gopis. It's just said. It's said, yeah, Radha's the best and the favorite of Krishna. But I don't think it's said. I haven't read it everything and studied everything, but it's a beautiful, beautiful mystery that we can reflect on. What is it that makes Radha most attractive? What is it that makes her the perfect one for Krishna to take the position in the form of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, to become Radha Mohan and to live out these pastimes in the Vraj Leela?